Welcome to Short Course, episode 117 for November 17th, 2023. I'm your host, Ben Barry. I was having an interesting email exchange with a listener, and as a part of this exchange, the topic was largely around the idea that people will, to some degree, some people will rise to the level of competition they're put into, and I totally agreed with him, that people should shoot higher level matches, even if they don't consider themselves a competitor or, someone that's going to dry fire 5 times a week or, try and make GM. That even your typical B, C class shooter would benefit from shooting a bigger match, a well-run level 2, maybe an area match. And the topic of discussion in this case was nationals, but certainly I agree with the idea of people benefiting from stepping outside, just shooting their monthly match, their local matches, and shooting at the very least their state match or some surrounding state matches or maybe their area match. And in the course of this discussion, I thought about something in a new way that after 10 plus years in the sport, I really had not seen it through this lens. And I thought it would be an interesting topic to discuss on the podcast, not necessarily because it answers any questions, but I think it helps us frame better questions, the answer to which valuable guidance and insight might come out of. And I fully admit that this is from a relatively limited sample of the clubs that I've directly interacted with in my time in shooting. So I'm very curious to hear from you guys if what I'm describing matches what you see and if there's anything to be learned from that. So the thing that I've sort of long known and long thought about is the idea that when you look at monthly level 1 USPSA matches, there are typically, in my experience, 2 broad types. And this is a spectrum, so some are kind of in the middle, some shade more to one side or the other. But generally speaking, matches fall somewhere on the spectrum where at one end you have the matches that really almost run their monthly match like a sectional, like a level 2 match. They have stages that are really tightly designed, that are scrupulously legal, or as much so as you can manage to do when you're setting up stages the day before or the morning of a match. The officiating at the match follows range commands, follows all the rules. They're strict about scoring, strict about gear rules. You don't have guys just giving each other reshoots because, you had a jam or he's a buddy. You don't have any of that. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have the matches that I think of more as the matches that are an in and of themselves. It's just somebody's putting on a USPSA match because it's a sport, because if they put on a USPSA match, people will show up and shoot it, but they don't either explicitly or implicitly run the match in a way where what they are trying to do is prepare the shooters to go to higher level matches. And what I realized, which in retrospect seems so obvious that I can't really understand how it didn't click before, but what I realized in the course of this conversation this week is that generally speaking, the matches that act like or explicitly are trying to prepare shooters to compete at a higher level are run by match directors who themselves compete at a higher level, whether that's shooting the state match, shooting their area match, or shooting nationals. And on the other hand, typically speaking, the matches that tend to be more lax are run by match directors who they shoot maybe their monthly match, maybe they drive around and shoot 1 or 2 other USPSA matches. In some cases, it's guys that they run a bunch of different matches at the same range. So this guy might not have a chance to go and shoot other USPSA matches because the other weekends of the month when there are matches going on at other ranges, he's got to run IDPA or he's running some kind of zombie match or some kind of outlaw steel or something else on those weekends. And so in some cases, but not all, it's ranges where they're not really focused on running great USPSA matches. USPSA is just one of the types of matches that they run. And they don't necessarily have someone who's a subject matter expert in USPSA running the matches. But whether or not they run lots of different ones or whether it's just for whatever reason, the common element that I started to notice is the idea that the matches that tend to be more lax about gear, that if you show up with gear that just doesn't meet division requirements, nobody will really say anything to you. They might be, really generous calling doubles. The range commands might be spotty at best. Just the little details that some matches are really, really try and get right, and that some matches tend to let slide, those little details tend to be more loose at the matches where the level 1 kind of is the destination. It's not the people running the match don't necessarily see this as preparation for shooting those bigger matches, like I said, either implicitly or explicitly, because they themselves don't have experience with those larger matches. And this is not meant to be critical of those match directors. It is a service to the sport just to have more matches. One thing that does come to mind from this is the idea of it would be interesting, or it would be nice if there was some way to tell when you were signing up for a match which of the two it was. Because honestly, for someone who was looking to dip a toe in, it actually might be easier to go shoot one of these more lax, less level 2 focused matches. I would like to think that the crew that runs the Sir Walter Gun Club monthly match, we do the best that we can to run a section level 7 or 8 stage match, depending on the classifier setup, 7 or 8 stage match every month. But it's a heck of a first match. I mean, there's some high shot difficulties. There are going to be some challenging movers, because in particular, the three of us that design the stages, as well as the folks that set up, think about Sir Walter not as the destination, but as a stepping stone to level 2, level 3, and level 4 matches. And so we build the match that we would want to shoot to prepare us for bigger matches. But I can completely understand how that would be intimidating for a first-time shooter. I'll also say some of the matches that do hold rules and stages and everything else to a higher standard, they sometimes tend to be longer matches. And so it's a longer day, whereas some of these more laid back matches, you may be in and out in 3 hours. And so for someone just looking to dip a toe in, with the understanding that, hey, there is more to it than this isn't necessarily the whole, this isn't the limit of what USPSA is, but this is a sample. Pointing them to one of these more laid back matches in a way would be a service. It is in a way more beginner friendly. And I mean, I think this might be going a little far afield, but this gets to an interesting tension, an interesting cross purpose, an interesting paradox that level 1 matches are in. Because on the one hand, yes, level 1 matches, to some degree, their goal is to be regular monthly practices for shooting bigger matches. And some local monthly matches do try and simulate that as best they can. But on the other hand, by definition, level 1 matches are also the entry point to the sport. There's no such thing as a level 0 match, something below a level 1 match. Now, I've thrown out the idea that it would be interesting to say, what would a level 0 match look like? Could you put together a match where it was 2 medium courses and 2 classifiers, and someone could shoot it in 2 hours, get their feet wet shooting on the clock? If they were trying to get classified, well, you only need to shoot 2 of those to get 4 classifiers. You've got your initial classification. It'd be relatively easy to set up. If they're medium courses, maybe you have 2 24-rounders, 2 12-rounders. That's 36 times 2, 72 rounds. You could shoot the whole match for 2 boxes of ammo. I mean, basically what I'm describing is kind of like the indoor match that I help run, where we basically tend to have 2 12-ish round technical stages and then 2 20-ish round more field coursey type stages. And what you get out of it is 2 boxes of ammo. You get 4 stages, and that match is kind of designed to be a new shooter friendly match. And if we're being honest, I think there are a lot of matches like that out there that serve as the feeder to USPSA. I mean, I know for a long time, IDPA was a feeder into USPSA, because if nothing else, I mean, I don't know about IDPA matches these days, but when I used to shoot it, it was a lot of 12-round stages, because 12 was the number where everybody had to reload once. And so you get 6 12-round stages, maybe 15-round. Again, you're in that 70 to 80 round count. You have 6 of those stages. So you can shoot the match with 2 boxes of ammo. You get your $20 match fee. Back in those days, 2 boxes of ammo was about $20. And you could, for $40, you could go shoot a match. And that was the entry point. And then once you kind of got serious about that, maybe you looked at this USPSA thing. I know there are other matches out there. There are, outlaw bug gun matches and other custom rule sets that people sometimes use to get into the sport. But we really do kind of ask level one matches to do both of these things. And like I said, I do think to some degree, the more level two oriented that a local match is, the less beginner friendly it can be. Now, if you are lucky, you have people who are serious competitors that are also ambassadors to the sport. And if you do, sign up for one of these matches and get squatted with those guys, you can have a good time and be sort of walked through and talked through your first match, even at one of these higher level ones versus one of the more laid back ones where you might get guys who are not as helpful. But again, it all depends on the day. But as someone who may have watched some YouTube videos and bought some gear and wants to shoot your first USPSA match, just looking at practice score, you might see, if you're lucky, you'll see 3 or 4 of them all within a reasonable driving distance from you on, different weekends of the month. And it's not really clear, where should I start? Which one is going to be a good entry point versus which one is going to be possibly, if it's leading up to a big match and the match director is feeling particularly mean, might be, soul crushingly difficult. Now, I don't think there are that many of those level ones out there, but you get what I'm saying. And so that's sort of one topic that I'll just kind of set off to the side because I don't really have anything to say else about that. But I think it is worth recognizing that we put level ones in this position of trying to do both things. And in my experience in practice, level ones tend to do one or the other. They tend to be a good entry point to the sport, or they tend to be really challenging stepping stones to a level 2 match. But it's pretty rare that you get one that does both. But to jump back to the sort of broader topic that brought this to mind is this idea of match directors that run a local USPSA match that aren't, what you would call USPSA guys per se. They're not going to necessarily build out USPSA specific gear. Maybe they dabble in 3-gun or IDPA. And so they're just either they have gear that's legal in that other sport and they just shoot it in USPSA and, hey, nobody really notices that you've got a magwell on your gun in carry optics, or you're using a race holster in production, or, something like that. I get it. Those guys, they are responding to a different set of incentives. And like I said, I there's no answer embedded in the question. But when I had this moment of clarity, when I realized I'd always been sort of aware of these two types of matches, but it became sort of clear to me that the type of match that a person runs is implicitly or explicitly a result of ultimately what they're in the sport for. If somebody is sort of singularly focused on USPSA and does travel around to shoot bigger matches, then they're going to run matches that serve that end. Whereas if you have somebody who either USPSA is kind of a side interest or one of many matches that they run at their range, then it's always just going to be in competition. So I think the question is, and this is really the broader question, how can USPSA as a sport help those match directors out? How can USPSA as a sport help these guys who aren't, quote unquote USPSA guys to run high quality matches that will prepare shooters to go to bigger matches? And one thing, sort of the obvious answer is, can we get them to go to bigger matches? Even if it's just shooting their state match, I wonder what effect that would have. Now, here in North Carolina, their staff's policy as section coordinator is, and I think this is fairly common in other sections, if you're a match director at a club in the section, you get to shoot the section match for free. It's just sort of, a way to say thank you and one of the perks of the job. So, we have these guys in North Carolina, and I'm sure there are, it would be interesting to do some kind of thorough, database gathering, looking at the database of section coordinators and match directors and who's registered in practice score and all that, but actually put the numbers together and see how many club match directors actually shoot their own section match, and if we can sort of learn something from that. But I think a policy like what North Carolina has is a good one where, hey, club match directors shoot the match for free. Now the question is, are the guys that, does it change anyone's mind? Are the guys that would shoot the state match, would they be willing to pay even if they, even if they didn't get it for free? And is it actually incentivizing the guys who don't shoot the match to shoot it? And so there's a debatable utility of that perk. Is it actually changing anyone's mind? And I think the answer is probably, for the most part, no. There are probably relatively few people who are kind of on the fence, and that free match fee is the thing that tips them over. But I'm sure there are a few here and there. Now, something else that I think comes up a lot is this idea of a stage library. And I definitely think the stage library is useful insofar as it definitely steers match directors in the direction of legal high quality stages. So for example, there are certain target presentations that are just illegal. The most common being where you take a no shoot and just cut a hole in the middle of it, and you have to shoot through the no shoot to some target, either directly overlaid behind it, or maybe the no shoot is on a target stand in front of some other target. That is a common illegal presentation that you see among first time match directors, I think. And you're never going to see that, or ideally you wouldn't see that, in a stage that is available to competitors from the stage library. Now, without going too far down the rabbit hole of the USPSA stage library and its shortcomings, I think it definitely could be better organized. It could be better sorting in terms of things like indoor versus outdoor match stages that work on a single berm versus bays with two berms, or full on 3-sided bays. There's also, my understanding is what gets submitted to the USPSA stage library is the diagram as it was originally submitted. And so if there is something identified by the range master or the RMI or whoever does feedback, I have heard, I have no independent confirmation on this, but I've heard that the version that's on the stage library won't necessarily have those changes reflected. So in that sense, you may actually have the stage library showing things that are then flagged by the RMI. And so you would want an updated version showing the stage with whatever changes are needed to make it legal. Now, that's assuming the changes that are made are actually in the interest of legality and not just taking out interesting stuff, which that's a separate issue. So I think encouraging match directors to shoot bigger matches is one thing. Making a database, a repository of high quality stages to copy versus sort of asking someone who doesn't shoot other USPSA matches to come up with stages that would be interesting and challenging to people who do shoot 3 or 4 USPSA matches a month. So the stage library, I think, is definitely a step in the right direction. There is more improvement that could be done there, but I think that is a step in the right direction. I do also wonder, is there a way that we could use the knowledge, the information that USPSA has about who the local members are, and help have some kind of buddy system or something where the match director is the one who, keeps all the match proceeds or whatever, but just make it understood that, hey, if you want somebody who is a USPSA subject matter expert, you can recruit somebody who will come and, whether you send them the stages beforehand, or if I think some of these clubs just tend to kind of build them on the ground, which fair enough, that you have to do what you have to do to make the match work at your club. But try and pair that match director who's not a USPSA subject matter expert. Could one of the perks of affiliating with USPSA be access to, hey, here's a way that you can email all the certified ROs and CROs within 50 miles of your match and say, hey, is anybody willing to kind of come give these stages a once over? Come be, not the match director in a sense, but the USPSA subject matter expert. I'm just spitballing here, but I'm trying to think of a way that we can align the incentives of shooters who want to shoot better matches and match directors who want to put on high quality matches. Because, let's be honest, people will drive further. Really hardcore dedicated USPSA guys will drive farther for a more level 2 like monthly match. And so I think you definitely do see this sort of vicious cycle where the most knowledgeable USPSA folks might stop shooting some of these local matches that are too lax with the rules. And so then you get this feedback loop where there are fewer people around to complain about either illegal stages or lax gear rules or overly friendly scoring calls or giving people reach, all this stuff that drives the regular competitors away. It actually becomes this vicious cycle where there's few of them around at these matches. And so they feel like more and more of a minority when they do, speak up and raise these issues. And so how do we, and I really don't want this to come across as me grinding an axe, because again, I understand that different people run USPSA matches for different reasons. Not everybody wants exactly what I want, but what I'm trying to get at is how can we structurally, how can USPSA as an organization at the national level, potentially, how can we structurally make a system where shooters and match directors all get what they want, and we can, like I'm saying, have some kind of system where a match director who is responsible for, maybe they run IDPA one weekend and Steel Challenge the next weekend and USPSA the next weekend and a 3-gun match the fourth weekend. How can we give them the resources so that they can run something that is as close to a level 2 that has the influence from someone who does travel around and shoot these bigger matches? I don't know. Like I said, I'm just kind of putting ideas out there. I'm trying to state the question clearly, and I'm sure you guys will have some thoughts on this, and I really look forward to it. And that's, my email is at the end of every episode, so definitely send me your anecdotal experience. Have you seen this around you? Have you not? What have you seen that works? What doesn't? There are hundreds, maybe close to 1,000 of you out there listening, and I'd be curious to gather more data, because like I said, this is a pattern that I've seen from the matches that I've personally interacted with over the years, but I have no idea if it scales or not. And I just want to wrap up with sort of a brief announcement and a sort of brief miniature topic here at the end. There will be no podcast next week. I will be taking off the week for Thanksgiving, but it will also be this weekend is IPSC Nationals at the Volusia Range, Hunt and Rifle Club, whatever it is, the Volusia Range in Florida. And I'll be driving down there with the family, and I'll be shooting that match Saturday and Sunday. So if you hear this, if you see me, come find me, come say hi. My goal is to be on the range as long as I physically can be, just to, get to talk to folks and just be around. Because to me, and this is sort of what I wanted to talk about, there is a reason I very deliberately chose that IPSC Nationals is the one Nationals that I'm going to shoot this year. I have shot USPSA Nationals many times. I worked it as staff in 2014. I shot it as a competitor in 17, 18, 19, and 21. I think I didn't make it to 20, but that was the year of COVID. So I've shot it, obviously not as much as some people, but I've shot my share of USPSA Nationals. And every time I shot one outside of the 2014 and 2017 ones that were in St. George, I just kind of walked away feeling underwhelmed. It just felt like this wasn't what Nationals should be. And I will say, at the very least, to me, IPSC Nationals shooting the match is to some degree a statement. It's me voting with my feet and with my wallet that this is the match that I think most closely resembles the match that I think Nationals should look like. It's all the divisions heads up shooting the same stages at the same time, a little, miniature world shoot. And I mean, there is also to some degree an element kind of like with the Kentucky Bluegrass low cap match that I shot in the spring of this year. There's this element of everybody who's there kind of wants to be there. Either, well, I mean, to some degree it is a qualifier match for the world shoot. So there's that element of pressure, but everybody who is shooting a match like the IPSC Nationals, it's kind of off the beaten path. It's not a cool, high prestige type event, but to some degree, it seems like a gathering of enthusiasts, of the people sort of most dedicated to the sport in the country. It's not flashy. The trophies won't be nearly as cool as the USPSA Nationals trophies. If there is an awards dinner, I think there's some kind of awards dinner planned on the range at Sunday night. We'll see what that ends up looking like. That all, certainly could be better. It could be a more prestigious event in that sense. But to me, when I just look at all the Nationals on the calendar, the IPSC Nationals, yes, it's cool, production 15 and all that, but it really is. It's just the match that to me seems the most like the Nationals that I want to be a part of. And so that's why when I was planning out my calendar for the year, I basically looked at I could shoot production Nationals. I could shoot, I could shoot Carry Optics Nationals. I could have gotten a slot to those, but IPSC was just the one that seemed like the place that I wanted to be. Now, is it everything that I think a Nationals should be? Well, no, it'll be a 2-day match. It'll be 18 stages, which in an IPSC 3-2-1 format is not nothing. I mean, I do think the 3-2-1 short, medium, long course format gives you a more well-rounded test of the competitor. I think short courses are very unforgiving to small hiccups in gun handling. You know, if it's a 12-round stage, nobody except Revolver and Classic, aka Single Stack, nobody except Revolver and Classic are going to be doing a reload. So the grip you start the stage with is very well maybe the grip that you shoot the whole thing with. Now, is also a higher likelihood that there will be some kind of movement during the stage where maybe you readjust your grip and that kind of thing. But you get what I'm saying, where short courses, I think, do tend to be more, you won't win a match on them, but a mistake or a series of mistakes, a pattern of mistakes on the short courses can definitely cost you the match. And so I think that 3-2-1 format is definitely interesting. I don't know that it has to be 3-2-1, you know, if it was a 1-1-1 format or something like that, just something where there was more of an emphasis on having short courses, a balance of short, medium, and long courses that wasn't just, oh, hey, we're going to have 5 long courses, and then on this one bay, we're going to have 2 short courses that you shoot back to back. It's like, okay, that's not really the point. I will say I did like that aspect of shooting the Pan American Extreme match this January, February, in the very beginning of this year, is it did have that flow where your squad would roll up, and if it was a short course, you'd have a 3-minute walkthrough. Typically, there's not that much to look at, and you would be able to focus on shooting just that short course. It wasn't this element of, okay, I just shot this. Okay, let me go load my mags, and then I'm up in 3 shooters on the other side of the stage, or you have to shoot both back to back, where you basically just stay hot and walk over, and you kind of have to try and prepare for both. Yeah, that's its own kind of challenge, but the way that you kind of have this flow of going from short, medium, and long stages, I like it. What can I say? I'm a sucker for that. I think it is a different kind of test that we don't necessarily see at our nationals, and I think there's something that we can learn from it. But anyway, to list the negatives, right? So it's 18 stages of 3-2-1 for a true nationals. I think a 3-day match would be better. I think 3 days for a true nationals is definitely the minimum. But I also understand that the guys running this match weren't sure whether they would be able to fill the match. And I think by the time they realized how much demand there was for this match, I'm sure if they could go back in time, they probably would make it a bigger match with more days and more squads and more shooting. But to some degree, when you plan out a match, you have to make your bet. And then once that's out there, people are committing to certain dates. It's hard to just tack on another date of shooting. But I think if they had, I think people probably would have been mostly down for that, but who knows? So it's that. And then, as far as I know, it'll be a sort of typical competitor reset match. There are certainly, if you go to a bigger European Handgun Championship or, a world shoot, that's going to be staff reset, partially for fairness, partially for match flow, which I think are the 2 main benefits for a staff reset match. But as far as I know, this won't be. As far as I know, this will be a competitor reset match, but then all the other USPSA nationals would have been too. So it's a wash in that respect. So, it's definitely not a perfect match, but when I sort of sat down at the beginning of the year and had the choice, and, as the match calendar was announced, I sort of said, yeah, to me, IPSC nationals, it aligns with, to me, the kind of match I want to shoot. And so I'm going to support it with my limited time off work, my limited travel budget, my limited match ammo budget. And so that's where I'll be this weekend. If you see me walking around, by all means, come up, say hi. I genuinely do want to get to talk to as many folks as I can and just hear different perspectives. One of the things that I really, I know I've been saying it recently, but I really do mean is, all I have to go on is the stuff that I've seen and the stuff that you guys tell me. And so the more experiences that I can learn from and benefit from and take, oh, hey, I'm hearing this same story from 3 or 4 or 5 people. Okay, there's something here. The more that I can get of that, the more effective I'll be as an area director, not just, for Area 6, but from guys across the country. And I know there are going to be a lot of folks coming, not just from Area 6, but from across the country to shoot this match. And so, yeah, I'll be around. I'll be doing my best to shoot well. I have not had the dry fire schedule I would have wished for, but that's life. And, I definitely feel blessed to have have the family that I have and the job that I have, and have had the opportunity to, have all of these discussions with you guys as a part of recording the podcast and now, leading up to being area director. So I can't complain. I will shoot to the, shoot the best that I can and have a good time doing it. And again, hopefully get to talk to a good number of you folks out there and have some interesting stories to tell and some content for the podcast when it's all done. Well, that wraps up this episode of Short Course. If you want to get in touch with me, my email is ben@berryshooting.com. Talk to you next time.